The motel sheets smelled like cheap detergent and desperation. I lay stiff beneath the scratchy blanket, heart thumping against my ribs as I stared at the water-stained ceiling. Outside, the wind howled through the skeletal trees, rattling the windowpane like a ghost trying to get in. Beside me, my stepdad snored softly, his breathing steady, his secrets buried deep. We hadn't planned to stop here. Not in this dump. But fate had other ideas when our car sputtered and died on that lonely stretch of highway, no cell service, no soul in sight. Mom would have hated this place. She'd have insisted we keep driving, even if it meant freezing our asses off. But she wasn't here. Just me and him. I shifted under the covers, trying to find a comfortable position. The room was too quiet except for his breathing and the occasional groan of the old building settling. Then, just as I started to drift off, a whisper sliced through the dark. He was on the phone. Not with my mom. No, this voice was different, low, sultry, familiar now that I was listening. My stomach dropped as he murmured promises he'd never made to my mother. Promises of escape. Of love. Of more. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from what felt like a nightmare. But the words kept coming, each one another nail in the coffin of everything I thought I knew. He wasn't just cheating. He was living a lie. Hey dear. Let us know where you're watching from, we would love to know. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you enjoyed this intense and emotional story, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment for more real-life drama, heartbreak, and secrets revealed. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, like the cold air outside had seeped into my bones. I stared at the ceiling as his voice slithered through the darkness, smooth and seductive, nothing like the man who had just kissed my forehead and said, "Good night, kiddo." "I miss you," he whispered into the phone. "I wish you were here with me." The way he said it made my stomach churn, softer than he ever spoke to my mom, more tender than he'd ever been with me. I could hear the woman on the other end giggling softly, her voice barely audible but unmistakably intimate. "When are you coming back?" she asked. "Soon," he replied. "Just a little longer. Once Emily starts college, things will be easier. I'll have more freedom." My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't just having an affair, he was planning a future with someone else. A future that didn't include me or my mother. "How's your room?" she asked playfully. "Fucking miserable," he muttered. "But it's quiet now." "She's asleep." She? Was he talking about me? A fresh wave of nausea hit me. This wasn't some random motel fling. He was comfortable enough to talk about me to her, like I was just a minor detail in their fantasy world. I wanted to scream. To cry. To demand how he could do this to us. Instead, I stayed silent, pretending to sleep while my heart shattered into pieces. And somewhere deep inside, I knew I couldn't unhear this. I couldn't forget it either. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the thin curtains like spies trying to catch a glimpse of the night's secrets. I kept my back to him, pretending to be asleep even as he moved around the room, zipping his suitcase, brushing his teeth, humming some stupid song like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't changed everything. I could still hear his voice in my head, the way he'd said her name, the way he'd laughed at something she whispered into the phone. The ease with which he lied. I wanted to vomit. "Emily," he said, tapping my shoulder gently. "We should get going soon. Car's probably fixed by now." I opened my eyes slowly and looked up at him. His face was freshly shaved, his shirt crisp despite the disaster we'd slept in. He smiled that same warm, fatherly smile I used to trust without question. Now it felt like a mask. "Okay," I mumbled, sitting up stiffly. He handed me my phone. "Your mom texted. She's been worried." I took it without a word. There were 3 missed calls from her. One message. How's your trip? Did you make it home okay? Home. What a joke. I didn't know what home meant anymore. As he stepped into the hallway to call the front desk, I stared at his retreating figure, heart pounding. This man, who kissed my forehead last night, who tucked me in like I was his own daughter, was living a double life. And I was the only one who knew. The mechanic had our car fixed by noon. Just like that, no dramatic delays, no last-minute twists. I almost wished something else would go wrong. Anything to delay going home. To delay the moment I'd have to sit across from my mom and pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't. Nothing was. We pulled onto the highway in silence. He drove, whistling again. I sat curled up by the window, arms wrapped around myself like I could hold together the pieces of my shattered world. He tried small talk at first, asking about the colleges we visited, if I wanted to stop for lunch, if I was okay. I gave him short answers. Monotone. Avoiding eye contact. Every time he spoke, I heard her voice layered beneath his words. Every smile felt like a betrayal. Every normal thing he did made me want to scream. Emily, he said finally, glancing at me with a frown. You're being quiet. Is everything all right? I turned my head slowly, staring at him. Really seeing him for the first time since last night. Was he really asking me that? I could tell him the truth. Watch his face fall. Hear him beg for an excuse, a justification, a way out. Or I could say nothing. Keep it buried. Let it rot inside me while he played the perfect husband, the perfect stepdad, the perfect liar. So I just shrugged and looked away. Yeah, I whispered. Just tired. He nodded, turning back to the road. And I stared at him in silence, knowing I'd never see him the same way again. The moment we pulled into the driveway, my mom was at the door, wrapped in a cozy sweater, smiling like she hadn't spent the last 24 hours worrying. Oh, thank God you're back, she said, rushing down the steps to hug me. I was so worried with no signal and everything. I let her squeeze me tight, her perfume wrapping around me like a warm blanket I no longer believed in. Yeah, I mumbled into her shoulder. We're okay. She turned to him next, beaming as he kissed her cheek like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't whispered promises to another woman while I lay pretending to sleep. I missed you, she said softly. I missed you too, he replied, voice smooth, eyes kind. I felt like I might throw up. Inside, dinner was already on the table, her favorite pasta, lovingly made. She bustled around us both, asking about the trip, the colleges, if I was excited. I gave vague answers, watching him from the corner of my eye as he laughed, touched her hand, told stories about how tired I looked after our long night at the motel. Every word felt like a dagger. By dessert, I couldn't take it anymore. Not hungry, I muttered, pushing back from the table. Emily? Mom asked, concerned. I'm just tired, I repeated, echoing the lie I'd used all day. As I walked away, I could hear her voice behind me, soft, loving, trusting. And all I could think was, she has no idea. That night, I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling again, just like in that motel room, but this time, there were no whispers behind thin walls. No late-night phone calls. Just silence. And it was louder than anything I'd ever heard. I replayed the conversation over and over in my head. His words. Her laughter. The way he talked about me like I was a stepping stone to his freedom. I wanted to tell someone. Anyone. But who? Mom trusted him completely. He wasn't just her husband, he was her rock, her partner in every sense. She had built a life with him. A family. And I was part of that family. If I told her the truth, everything would fall apart. Would she believe me? Or would she think I misunderstood? Misinterpreted? Would she take his side? I scrolled through my phone, staring at messages from friends asking how the trip went. I couldn't even form a response. How do you explain that the person you've called dad for 10 years isn't who you thought he was? That your home doesn't feel safe anymore? That the man who raised you loved another woman more? Tears welled up as I pulled my blanket tighter around me. I was trapped between loyalty and betrayal. Between silence and truth. And worst of all, I didn't know which one would hurt more. If you love this story of infidelity, heartbreak, and shocking twists in Emily's story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you never miss out next post. Speech balloon, drop your thoughts in the comments. What should Emily do next? The next morning, I woke up with a headache pounding behind my eyes. I hadn't slept, just tossed and turned, replaying every moment from that motel room like a horror movie on loop. And now, here he was again, sitting at the breakfast table like nothing had changed. "Morning, kiddo," he said, sipping his coffee. "Want some eggs?" I flinched at the nickname. It felt different now. Fake. Like everything else. "No thanks," I muttered, grabbing a banana instead. Mom came in humming, still wrapped in her fuzzy bathrobe. She kissed him on the cheek before sitting beside me. "You okay?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You look exhausted." I stared at her for a second too long. She didn't know. She really didn't know. "I'm fine," I lied again. But as I looked at them, her smiling, him eating like a man without a care, I felt something inside me snap. How could he sit there? How could he pretend? My hands started shaking. I couldn't do this. I couldn't eat. Couldn't smile. Couldn't pretend to be part of this perfect little family picture while he played house like a criminal hiding in plain sight. I stood up so fast my chair screeched across the floor. "I have to go," I whispered. "Emily?" Mom frowned. "Where are you going?" "You haven't eaten." I didn't answer. I just walked out the door, because if I stayed one more second, I was going to scream. And I wasn't sure I'd be able to stop. I didn't mean to go to her. But somehow, my feet carried me straight to Aunt Jess's house, the one person in the world I could talk to without filtering my words. Mom's older sister had never liked him, not really. She always said he was too smooth, too charming. I used to roll my eyes at her. Now I wished I'd listened. She opened the door with a confused smile that quickly faded when she saw my face. "Emily? What's wrong?" I just stared at her for a second, chest rising and falling too fast, like I couldn't get enough air. Then it all came pouring out. The broken down car. The motel. The whispering through the wall. His voice, soft and loving, not with my mom, but with someone else. The lies. The plans. The way he talked about me like I was just an obstacle. Tears streamed down my face as I spoke, and Aunt Jess didn't interrupt once. She just pulled me inside, sat me down, and held my hand while I unraveled. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment, jaw tight, eyes dark with something between anger and grief. "I'm so sorry you had to hear that," she finally said, voice low. I sniffled. "What do I do?" She sighed, brushing hair from my forehead. "That's not an easy question." I looked up at her, desperate. "Do I tell Mom?" She hesitated. And that hesitation scared me more than anything. Aunt Jess's silence stretched like a taut wire between them, vibrating with unspoken weight. Emily could feel her heart hammering in her chest, each beat louder than the last. "I don't know," Aunt Jess finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "If you tell her, it'll destroy her." Emily's breath caught. But he deserves to be exposed. Jess nodded slowly. He does. But your mom, she loves him, Em. She's built her life around him. You telling her this would change everything. It might even break her. Emily stared at the floor, tears dripping off her chin and staining her jeans. So I just pretend like nothing happened? No, Jess said firmly, gripping Emily's hand tighter. You don't pretend. You protect yourself. You watch him. You listen. You make sure there's proof before you say anything. Proof? Emily whispered. Jess's jaw tightened. Because if you go to her without it, he'll deny it. He'll twist things. And she might not believe you. The thought hit Emily like ice water. What if her mom didn't believe her? What if she was the one who got punished for breaking the illusion? What do I do? She asked again, voice cracking. Jess looked at her niece, the girl she'd watched grow up, the girl who had always been more like a daughter than a niece, and sighed. For now? You stay quiet. You take care of yourself. And you come to me anytime, day or night, okay? You're not alone in this. Emily nodded numbly. Over the next few weeks, Emily moved through life like a ghost. At school, she withdrew from friends, lost in her own thoughts. At home, she watched her stepdad like a hawk, noting every late-night phone call, every unnecessary text message, every excuse he gave for being gone longer than expected. She began taking screenshots, saving texts, recording conversations when she could. Not because she wanted to destroy him, but because she needed to know she wasn't crazy. One evening, she found an old receipt tucked inside his jacket pocket, hotel stationery, dated 2 months ago. A weekend trip he'd told Mom was a business conference. She slipped it into her backpack like evidence in a crime file. Then came the worst part, watching her mother smile at him, laugh with him, confide in him. Emily sat silently at the dinner table, hands clenched under the tablecloth as she listened to her mom talk about how lucky they were to have him. Sometimes, when their eyes met across the room, Emily felt like screaming. Instead, she smiled back. Fake. Just like him. Weeks turned into months. The college applications loomed, deadlines creeping closer. Her stepdad still kissed her forehead on occasion, still called her kiddo. But now, every gesture felt like a performance. One night, after overhearing another hushed conversation between him and the other woman, this time on speakerphone while he thought she was asleep, Emily broke down again. She ran out of the house in the middle of the night, barefoot and crying, and showed up at Aunt Jess's door again. This time, Jess didn't hesitate. She pulled Emily inside, made her tea, and said, "We need to make a plan." In the following weeks, Jess helped Emily build a timeline. They organized the texts, the receipts, the voicemails. They even reached out to a family friend who worked in legal aid, asking hypothetical questions about infidelity and evidence. And then, one night, Jess asked the question that changed everything. "Do you want me to tell her?" Emily froze. What? Jess looked her dead in the eye. "I can sit your mom down. Tell her what you heard. Show her the proof. I'll be there when she hears it." Emily's heart raced. "Would you really do that?" Jess nodded. "I would do anything for you. And for her." The next morning, Emily handed over her phone, filled with messages, screenshots, and recordings, to Aunt Jess. And together, they prepared to shatter the illusion. Emily hadn't gone home after breaking down at Aunt Jess's house. She stayed the night, curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and old memories. Jess didn't press her for more details, just made sure she had tea, space, and silence when she needed it. But by morning, Emily knew she couldn't hide forever. She had to go back. Not because she wanted to, but because there was no other choice. Back home, everything felt the same, and yet, completely wrong. Her stepdad was there, just as he always was, sipping coffee in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like nothing had changed. He smiled at her with that same warm, practiced grin. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Want some?" She forced a nod, sitting down at the table across from him. Her mother was upstairs getting ready for work, humming softly to herself. Emily stared at him, watching every movement, every flicker of expression, every casual glance toward the hallway where the stairs led to the second floor, their bedroom upstairs. The room where he slept beside her mother. The room where, now, she imagined him lying not with her mom, but with her. The thought twisted something inside her. "How's your head?" he asked, sliding a plate of pancakes toward her. She looked up slowly, meeting his eyes. "It's fine," she said flatly. He chuckled, oblivious, or pretending to be. "That's my girl." She almost choked on the bile rising in her throat. That night, Emily lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, save for the muffled murmur of the TV downstairs. She could hear them laughing together, her mother and him, curled up on the couch like any normal couple after a long day. They were still in love. And he was still lying. It started late. Around 1 a.m., maybe later. Emily heard the creak of the floorboards above her room. A soft giggle. Then the unmistakable sound of someone whispering, low and intimate. She sat up straight in bed, heart hammering. No. No way. They wouldn't. Would they? She slipped out of bed, barefoot, pressing her ear against the door. The sound came again, closer this time. A moan. A chuckle. The rustling of sheets. From their room. His room. Their bed. Emily's stomach turned. She crept silently into the hallway, her breath shallow. The master bedroom was at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack. She moved closer, slow and silent, until she could see. There he was. Lying in bed. With her. The woman from the phone calls. Long dark hair fanned across the pillow. Lips swollen. Skin glistening with sweat. His hand resting lazily on her hip. They were tangled together under the sheets like they belonged there. Like this was normal. Like this was home. Emily felt the world tilt beneath her feet. This wasn't just an affair. This was a violation. Of her mother. Of the sanctity of their marriage. Of the very idea of family. And worse, it was happening right under their roof. Suddenly, the woman rolled over. Emily caught a full view of her face. And froze. She knew her. Not well, but enough. She was the wife of one of her mom's best friends. Mrs. Callahan. The woman who'd brought casseroles when Emily was sick. Who'd hugged her mother at Christmas. Who'd toasted to their happiness at Mom and Stepdad's anniversary dinner. Now, she was here, in their bed, wrapped around the man Emily had called Dad for 10 years. Emily stumbled back, nearly tripping over the rug. She pressed a hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. She had to get out. She had to tell someone. But before she could move, the door creaked. He saw her. For a split second, their eyes locked. Shock. Then panic. Then rage. He bolted upright, shoving the woman aside. Emily. She didn't wait. She ran. Downstairs. Out the front door. Into the cold night air. She didn't stop running until she reached the sidewalk outside Aunt Jess's house. It was early. Too early. Jess opened the door groggily, then fully woke the moment she saw Emily's face. "What happened?" she demanded, pulling her inside. "They're here," Emily whispered, trembling. "In our house. In their bed. Together." Jess's face went white. Then hard. "Who?" she asked, though she already knew. Emily swallowed. "Mrs. Callahan." Jess sucked in a sharp breath. "No," she muttered. "Yes." Jess paced for a moment, fists clenched. Then she grabbed her phone. "We're calling your mom." "No!" Emily cried. "Not like this. Not without proof." Jess stopped, breathing hard. "What do you mean?" "I don't want her to hear it from someone else," Emily said, voice shaking. "I want her to see it." Jess looked at her niece, no longer a child, but a girl hardened by betrayal, and nodded slowly. "You want her to catch him in the act." Emily met her gaze, eyes burning with pain and fury. "Yes." The next part would be dangerous. But Emily was done being silent. She was going to make sure the truth couldn't be buried. Not this time. The house was eerily quiet when Emily returned from Aunt Jess's that evening. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the driveway. She hesitated at the front door, heart pounding. She hadn't told her mom everything, not yet, but she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't live in this lie anymore. Inside, the lights were dimmed, the house smelling faintly of lavender and lemon polish, her mother's favorite cleaning ritual. Emily stepped quietly into the living room. No one was there. Then came a sound from upstairs. A thud. Followed by laughter. Emily froze. It was them. Again. In their bedroom. She glanced toward the kitchen. Her mother's coat was still on the hook. Her purse sat neatly on the counter. She was home. But where? Emily moved slowly up the stairs, her breath shallow. She could hear them clearly now, muffled voices, low and intimate. And then a cry. Not pain. Pleasure. Emily's stomach turned. She reached the top of the stairs just as the bedroom door creaked open slightly. Her stepdad's voice floated out first. "Shoo, what if she comes home early?" "Oh, relax," came Mrs. Callahan's whisper. "She won't be back until 8. Emily clenched her fists. They thought they had time. Thought they were safe. But Emily wasn't the only one who had come home early. From the hallway behind her, a soft gasp echoed. Emily spun around. There stood her mother, frozen mid-step, groceries still clutched in her arms. For a moment, no one moved. Then her mother dropped the bag. Cans and fruit rolled across the floor with loud, metallic clatters. Mrs. Callahan shrieked, pulling the sheets up to her chin. Emily's stepdad bolted upright, his face paling like someone had just pulled the rug out from under him. "What the hell?" he barked, scrambling for a shirt. But it was too late. Everything was exposed. Her mother didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't move. She just stared. At him. At the woman beside him. At the bed, their bed, that had been defiled. Emily took a cautious step forward. "Mom." Her voice cracked. Still, her mother didn't respond. Instead, she turned slowly to Emily. And said the last thing Emily expected. "How long have you known?" Emily's breath caught. Her throat tightened. "I heard him. That night we stayed at the motel. I heard everything." Her mother closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with something deeper than sadness. Betrayal. Anger. Heartbreak. "You've known this whole time?" she whispered. Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't know how to tell you." Her mother looked away, her entire body trembling. Behind her, Mrs. Callahan whimpered. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. I didn't think she knew." Emily's stepdad finally found his voice. "This isn't what it looks like," he said, stepping forward. It was such an absurd lie that Emily let out a bitter laugh. Her mother finally snapped. "Get out." Her voice was low, but it sliced through the room like glass. He blinked. "What?" "You heard me." She turned to Mrs. Callahan. "Both of you. Get out. Now." Mrs. Callahan scrambled out of bed, wrapping herself in a blanket before rushing past them, avoiding eye contact. Emily's stepdad hesitated. "Please, just let me explain." "Now," her mother shouted, her voice cracking. He flinched, grabbed his clothes, and left without another word. Silence fell over the house like a heavy curtain. Emily stood alone with her mother. Neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, her mother sank to the floor and cried. Emily dropped to her knees beside her, wrapping her arms around her shaking frame. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have told you sooner." Her mother sobbed into her shoulder. "Why would he do this? After everything?" Emily didn't answer. Because she didn't have one. Only silence. Later that night, after the police had been called, after Mrs. Callahan had been escorted out and her stepdad had fled the house, they sat together on the couch, wrapped in blankets, staring blankly at the TV screen. Her mother's eyes were red and swollen. "I feel like I don't even know him," she said quietly. Emily swallowed hard. "He talked about leaving us. Once I went to college." Her mother turned to her, shocked. "He said things," Emily's voice trembled. "About me. Like I was holding him back." Her mother pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "I'm so sorry you had to go through this alone." Emily rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You did the right thing," her mother said softly. "You protected me. Even when you were hurting yourself." They sat like that for hours, silent, broken, but together. And for the first time since that motel room, Emily felt a little bit of peace. The truth had torn them apart. But it had also brought them closer than ever before. The house was quiet now, too quiet. Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at the half-empty glass of water in front of her. Across from her, her mother sat with her hands folded tightly together, eyes red and swollen, lips pressed into a thin line. It had been 2 days since she walked in on them. 2 days since the illusion shattered. Since then, her stepdad had packed his things and left, without a word, without a fight. The only thing he left behind was a note on the counter. "I'm sorry." 3 words. Not for Emily. Not even for her mom. Just an empty apology to no one in particular. Mrs. Callahan's husband had found out too. Word traveled fast once the police got involved. Her betrayal hadn't gone unnoticed, and now both families were in ruins. Emily's world had become something unrecognizable. That night, after her mother finally went to bed, Emily sat alone in the living room, scrolling through messages from friends who didn't understand why she'd stopped coming to school. She couldn't explain. How do you tell people your entire life was built on lies? How do you describe the feeling of watching someone you called dad betray not just your mother, but you? Aunt Jess entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. She set one down beside Emily and sat across from her. "You okay?" she asked gently. Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, She stared at the steam rising from the mug. I don't know what home is anymore, she said softly. Jess reached over and covered Emily's hand with her own. Home isn't a person. It's how you feel when you're safe. Emily looked up. I don't feel safe here. Jess nodded. Then we'll make sure you find that somewhere else. Emily swallowed hard. What if I never trust anyone again? Jess gave a small, sad smile. You will. Maybe not him. Maybe not anytime soon. But someday. Emily took a slow sip of tea, letting the warmth settle in her chest. Mom won't talk about it, she whispered. She pretends like nothing happened. She's hurting, Jess said. And sometimes, people deal with pain by pretending it doesn't exist. Emily closed her eyes. I wish I could forget. But you can't, Jess said gently. Because you're strong enough to remember the truth even when it hurts. Emily opened her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I just want things to go back to the way they were. Jess squeezed her hand. They won't. But they can be better. Different. Honest. Emily exhaled shakily. Do you think Mom will ever be happy again? Jess hesitated, just for a second, but then nodded. Yes. In time. And so will you. Emily leaned forward, resting her head in her hands. I just feel so broken. Jess stood and pulled her into a hug, wrapping her arms around her niece like she used to when she was little. You're not broken, Jess murmured into her hair. You're brave. You're healing. And you're not alone. Emily clung to her, sobbing quietly as all the weight she'd carried came crashing down. For the first time in weeks, she let herself cry, not just for her mother, not just for herself, but for everything that had been lost. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to feel lighter. Weeks passed. Her mother started seeing a therapist. So did Emily. They didn't talk much at first, but there was understanding between them, an unspoken bond forged in betrayal and survival. One evening, her mom knocked lightly on Emily's bedroom door. Can I come in? Emily nodded, sitting up on her bed. Her mom stepped inside, holding a box wrapped in old newspaper. I found this in the attic, she said softly, handing it over. Emily peeled back the paper. Inside was a stack of photos, her real father, her as a baby, her mom laughing in the sun. There were birthday cards, handwritten notes, Polaroids of their old apartment before he died. Before any of this. Before the lies. Emily traced a finger over her dad's face, smiling through tears. He would have loved you, her mom whispered. Emily looked up. He already did. Her mom smiled, tears in her eyes, and sat beside her. Together, they flipped through the memories, reclaiming pieces of their past, rebuilding the foundation of their future. And though the scars remained, they were healing. Side by side. Gradually. If you love this story of infidelity, heartbreak, and shocking twists in Emily's story, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you never miss out next post. Speech balloon, drop your thoughts in the comments. *, what should Emily do next?